And welcome back to the Spicy Sports Show with Sam Stern, coming to you live from Portland, Oregon. It's about 1:17 Pacific Time. In about 13 minutes, the USA kicks off their Gold Cup campaign against Panama. You can catch that on whatever sports network you guys have, I think. Sorry, I don't really know exactly what channel it is, but you can always find out. But it is going to be at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you're in Tennessee and you want to check out some soccer, I don't know how that works, but hey, I've heard Nashville is the Portland of Tennessee. And plus, I've been there. Tennessee is a really fun place to go if you know where to go, especially in Nashville. I mean, if you like country music, obviously, but they really have some good food there, and their southern hospitality is awesome. It's always fun. It's always funny when, we're 50 states, but there's 50 different cultures, I think. And again, as I mentioned on the podcast before, I used to travel for work and did all these podcasts from all over the country. And I've always had a fond appreciation for the South, just because of the level of respect that you typically get. As long as you're again, I understand there's a whole other different side of this story, but just speaking from my experience anyway, you know, if you're just as polite to them, they'll be polite to you, and it's a great it's just a great exchange of conversation, I think, and that's really what it's about. And plus, it's always nice when you get called sugar ma'am by the waitresses in there. That's always tickled my fancy when in Tennessee or anywhere in the South, really. Okay, back to the NBA. Gordon Hayward, essentially the biggest free agent acquisition this offseason. That moved because he moved number one. He moved conferences. He moved from the East, from the West, which was a loaded conference, and this is the first time in Gordon Hayward's 7-year career that he was an All-Star this past season. And then you move to the East, and you can look at it a couple of different ways for Gordon Hayward. And he's signing a $28 million deal over 4 years. It's a lot of money. Just averaging that out over that time frame, you're looking at about $32 million per season, which is pretty great. But on top of that, you move to a conference where you have a chance to get to the NBA Finals. Look, Utah was always a team that, maybe might make the playoffs. Can they all put it together? If it's all perfect, Utah can do something. And they finally did. This past season, upsetting the Clippers in 7 games, which I called, by the way. And then, losing in the second round to the Warriors, I mean, it's not a bad thing. They actually probably put up the most competitive games of any team that Golden State played this in the playoffs. And Gordon Hayward's such an underrated talent. You go from his days at Butler, and you knew he was going to be a great player. He wasn't drafted in the top 5, drafted in the top 10. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but he goes to a Utah organization that's very well run. They know how to rebuild, and they know how to rebuild properly. Through the draft, through getting quality free agents that will help the superstar grow. And then when it came time for free agency, Gordon Hayward took 3 meetings. Number 1, with the Jazz, obviously. When that's been your home, your entire professional career, giving them that opportunity to pitch them as to, hey, we're still on the process of rebuilding. And honestly, if Utah stayed together, they could probably be a top 3 team in the West. But it's hard to topple Golden State, obviously. And then whatever San Antonio, Houston, that's going to be difficult. So, I mean, at worst, they'd be a 4. At best, they could do is a 3. And they'd probably get bounced in the second round, or maybe in the conference finals to Golden State again. So, for Utah, of course, that's an option. You also had Miami. Pat Riley is a great recruiter. He knows how to pitch Miami. He knows how to get players down to Miami. Maybe granted his style's maybe a little antiquated, but it just seems that he knows how to get the free agents necessary to build a team. And, he did it. He gets a lot of the credit for getting LeBron and Chris Bosh down to Miami and win a couple championships there. And so he listened to their pitch. And then you had the Celtics. a team who he knows very well because his former coach, Brad Stevens, him and Hayward and Stevens were coach and player at Butler, and they went to back-to-back national championship games. The one off the rim against Duke is honestly one of the most iconic last-second shots in NCAA college history, NCAA tournament history. Again, it's one basket away from changing the face of a program. Think about that. One shot can change the face of a program. And Gordon Hayward, they put Butler on the map. Since then, Butler's always been a team where you hear the name and you think, okay, this is going to be a quality opponent now. And a lot of it has to do with what Brad Stevens and Hayward, again, Butler was pretty good before them, but then putting them on the map through these tournament runs, really laid the foundation for what Butler has been in recent tournament history after that. So obviously the familiarity with a coach that knows how to get to Hayward and knows how to get the very best out of him is a huge component. On top of that, you're visiting the number one seed in the East. Let's not forget that. Again, Cleveland did not play as well in the regular season, and Boston simply took advantage of that, and they were a pretty good team already. But when it came to the playoff run, you lose Isaiah Thomas, and quite frankly, you get beat. Isaiah Thomas, unfortunately, while he's a great player, and I think he is a really, really talented player and has maximized his value for what he has been able to do, being the last pick in the draft a couple years ago. And he became the face of, he became such a likable figure in Boston. He is a likable figure in Boston because Boston's such a, grinded out city, and we love people who grind as hard as they do. And you saw that every single night with Thomas. And then, of course, before the postseason started, you had some tragedy where his sister passed away in a car accident unexpectedly. And, that whole, emotion of rallying around him, you saw what the fans cheering him on during the game, during that series against Chicago, what that meant to him. And the grit that he has is, he's definitely well respected in the league. But unfortunately, he cannot be the face of a franchise. And Gordon Hayward, while I think he's a really good player, he definitely makes, and I don't know if they puts him over the top against Cleveland necessarily just yet, but I think it's a huge step closer to getting over to unseating Cleveland as the best team in the Eastern Conference. Gordon Hayward brings that familiarity, of course, with Stevens, as I mentioned, and then you had Hayward, you had, you have Horford there. Again, he's a good player, not a great player, but I think that because of Hayward being there, Horford will play better this season. And then, again, because of that also, Thomas will have a little bit of room to play more as well. And, again, he averaged, I think, close to 30 points a game. He could average a little bit more in this upcoming season. And on top of that, you add Jason Tatum, who, again, I know that it's preseason, I get that, but you saw what he was able to do in that first game against Philadelphia. His athleticism, his clutch ability late in the game. I like this roster. Again, I know that they're going to lose some components, and they lost Avery Bradley in the trade to the Pistons because they had to. Again, with the NBA, there's still a salary cap, even if it is a soft salary cap. They had to make some readjustments there to make the money work. And then potentially they're going to lose Jay Crowder, who averages about 13 points a game. And then with Bradley's 9 points a game, you lose 22 points. But you bring in Hayward's 22, you don't really lose much there. So it's a lot. It means a lot more workload's going to go on Hayward. But considering he's done that in Utah, I don't expect anything less from Hayward. I don't expect anything to change there. I think one of the biggest things that has been frustrating me is that they're comparing Gordon Hayward to Durant and his move to, want to get to a championship team. I honestly, while I think I don't like many people, I didn't like Durant's move. You just have to. You have to accept that because he's a free agent. At the end of the day, this is a business. And loyalty can can be lost both ways and can also go both ways. You know, a player who has been with that same franchise, you look at Dirk Nowitzki, you know, he opted out of his contract, but let's be honest here. He wasn't going anywhere other than staying in Dallas. They were just going to restructure his contract to see if they can attract other free agents, to try to see if they can put anything around him to see if they can do anything in the playoffs. Again, I don't think they will, obviously, because of what the West is right now, but the level of respect Dallas has for Nowitzki, it's no question they're going to do whatever they can to make him stay. And on top of that, Dirk Nowitzki taking a pay cut, it shows a huge component to what the player, what type of person Nowitzki is for his organization. So, I mean, that's one thing. You also look at players that, you know, underperform. You know, there are players that have underperformed their contract, and they're like saying, "Oh, he's overpaid," blah blah blah. But then you talk about players who are underpaid too. Steph Curry was severely underpaid before this magnificent run the last couple of years. Granted, a lot of it had to do with his injury history.